but it starts letting people in. Free already. Welcome, everybody. We have another minute or two before we start. If you could type in the chat box where you are located, that would be very helpful. Get an idea of where around the country or the world different people are participating from. Would be good. So just type it in the chat box. People. Florida. Oh, I'm having an ice storm here in Kentucky. Missouri, Washington State, Oklahoma. What place is warmer than here? Maryland, snowed in. Know the feeling. We're having ice storm. Ice storm's worse. At least snow, you can shovel it. Sort of. Everywhere from Florida to Maryland. Maryland, another common pro doesn't say where. Oh, Missouri is, yes. Missouri is having the ice and snow as well. California, Oklahoma, wow, all over the place. Okay, it's 3 o'clock. We're going to get started. My name is Dr. Jackie Jacob. I am a poultry specialist here at the University of Kentucky. And as part of my job, I organize these monthly webinars for e-extension, which is the electronic version of the Cooperative Extension Service. We do a different one every month. So everything is recorded. This is being recorded. They get posted on our YouTube channel. Feel free to view or let other people know to view it. It will probably be posted tomorrow. University is closed at the moment, so not sure how fast they will be getting it processed. With our ice storm, the city's pretty much closed down. So today's presenter is Allison Perkins from Georgia, who's going to be talking to us about schools incorporating poultry science and poultry birds themselves. So I will be monitoring the chat box and the Q&A. If you have a question during the presentation, type it in, because if you're like me, you forget if you don't type it right away. I'll be monitoring. If it's pertinent to what she's talking about at that time, I will pop back up and interrupt for a clarification. Otherwise, we will save the questions and Q&A for afterwards. So it's all yours, Allison.
Perfect. Share my screen. Perfect. All right. Perfect. Okay, great. Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you about incorporating poultry science into programming in schools. Just these past couple years, our schools have really seen an increase in interest in poultry science and incorporating it with their students. So I hope to share with you a little bit about what we've done here in Bartow County, Georgia. Again, my name is Allison Perkins. I am the extension agent here in Bartow County. We're located just north of Atlanta, and we're a very rural county, although we do have a lot of metro counties close by us. So we do have kids that are city kids and country kids, but no matter where or what background they have, they all really enjoy all of these lessons. So I hope to take you through some of these that you might can incorporate at your schools or in your communities. So I'd like to start off by giving just a brief introduction to agriculture in Georgia. Then we'll hit some highlights on the Georgia Department of Education standards. And I know each state might be a little different on what their standards are, but this should give you kind of a jumping off point so you can see how and where we got started with incorporating these lessons in our school systems. Then I have a few poultry and egg science lessons that I've created and modified over the years that I hope to share with you. And then our school system is really interested in problem-based learning opportunities. So they really want students to have a problem and then think through a solution to that problem. So we'll go over a few of those that are related to poultry and egg science. And then some considerations. So if schools are interested in incorporating chicken coops and actually having birds and animals on their property, what things would they need to know? So we had this great teacher meeting with all of the teachers. We did it by grade level at one of our local elementary schools. And in this meeting with each of the different grade levels, we established the importance of agriculture. A lot of the times the teachers weren't very familiar with the agriculture itself, specifically with poultry and egg science. So we really wanted to showcase the opportunities that students have moving forward in future career paths with poultry and egg science. Then we were able to try to connect the resources that we have here at the University of Georgia with those performance standards and how it relates to their students. And then we discussed different ways that they could incorporate chicken coops. So was the school interested in having a chicken club? Did they want to have just chicken ambassadors? So just having a select few students kind of take care of each of the birds, kind of rotate through grade levels. So different ways and how it might look for their school and what fits them best. So that was kind of our jumping off point. So we did kind of show them this graphic here that talked about how 1 in 7 Georgians work in agriculture, forestry, or food-related fields. So you can see there's this really big chunk of the pie that's in food services. Then it goes to ag and forestry, food and drink. And then you can see fabric, leather manufacturing, wood and paper manufacturing, and food and retail. So we did show them that there are lots of different avenues they can participate in with agriculture related jobs and career pathways in the future. This is one of the big things that we kind of hit home with the students and with the teachers, showing the importance that Georgia is one of the top poultry productions in the nation. So we do have a large poultry population here in Georgia, that it employs over 88,000 people in the state and has more than 4.3 billion in farm gate value. And the overall annual economic impact to the state of Georgia is more than $28 billion. So 3 out of 4 Georgians in all 159 of our counties are involved in poultry and egg production. So we really wanted to show the value of teaching these students early on the importance and understanding of poultry and egg science. So to get this done and kind of, give an overview for principals and administrators, we hit the highlights on grade levels to get them thinking about how they could incorporate poultry and egg science based on the standard for their grade level. So kindergarten, the basic ones are to connect and categorize products like eggs or milk used in agriculture. It's also to investigate agriculture safety. So animal safety tools and equipment. So if they did have a chicken coop on site, they could take their kindergartners out there and review the safety, like what do they need to keep those birds safe? So those were some different avenues with kindergarten. When it comes to first grade, they were able to explore the importance of agriculture and impact on daily life, and then ways agriculture meets human needs, identify ag commodities, and explore food preparation. So with first grade, they do have the opportunity to get involved with the chicken coops. One of our schools is actually doing an egg count to see the production and how it relates to the weather. So each day they have the students go out there, they count the eggs, they document the weather that's going on. So they involve them through first grade in that way. For second grade, it's to analyze the importance of animals in agriculture and the roles that they play, and then demonstrate an understanding of food safety when handling food or animal byproducts. The third grade standards are to relate the importance, how it's produced, handled, and prepared, and then also to describe the role of the government and industry to ensure a safe and wholesome food product. And we're going to touch on this standard a little bit later in one of the lessons. And again, we have the opportunity to compare geographic regions here in Georgia. So it also ties the different crops, the animal production that we have all together that way also. For fourth grade, they explore and communicate the importance of agriculture and its impact on our daily life, and then also the past and present importance of agriculture. Now, when it comes to fifth grade, this is where we really dive in a lot more with fourth, fifth grade, middle school, and some high school. So this is really the area that we've targeted. And the fifth grade standards are to develop an understanding of agriculture systems. They want to compare and contrast the physical traits of animals, so the chickens, classify and differentiate between different breeds of livestock, and then to examine the role of organisms in agriculture to soil and animals, and finally to learn about instinct and learned behaviors. And of course, explore and communicate the importance again. That's really important. As you can see, that's been a standard for most every grade level that we've hit on. And then finally, to construct a model of the supply chain. So those were kind of the highlights of our standards that we focused in our lessons. So I'll share with you just a few lessons that we've done with our schools. Again, these have been done with mostly 3rd grade all the way to 8th grade. And every teacher, every student that has been through these, no matter their background, if it's agriculture, performing arts, dance, they all really get engaged in these lessons. We had our city middle school teacher. She was our ELA teacher, our English teacher. And we did one of these lessons and she was so excited. She's like, I wish they would get this excited about our English and language arts as they do these lessons. So these are all great opportunities. And I'd be happy to share and take your information so I can pass these along to you if there's one of interest to you. So the first thing that we talked about was egg candling. And we've done this in 2 different ways. So this is one of the standards for your lower grade levels, embryo development. So if a school has a chance to develop embryos, you can go through and talk about the yoker, the quitter, and the winner. So we've done this mini lesson with one of our younger students. So they actually were able to candle them. We talked about the stages of candling, when you should stop candling, how to do candling. So this was a pretty easy lesson to do with the younger students. And then the next part we talked about with our chicken club, that was what one of our elementary schools, was to evaluate the interior for market. So our problem-based situation came from, we have all these eggs from our chicken coops. What can we do with them? If we don't use them all, can we sell them? Do we just throw them away? What are the next steps? So each of the students was given this situation. Your farm chickens are making more eggs than you need. You decide that you can sell your eggs at the local farmers market. First, you need to follow the Georgia egg candling laws and regulations by grading your eggs. So we have a student that gets each of the eggs. We talk about how they actually have to have a Georgia egg candler's license to sell their eggs here in Georgia. So first we pretend that we've already done that. We have all of that. And then they each have their own egg. And we talk about how they candle their egg. For our egg candling, when I first started, I did go to the really fancy website and buy the great portable egg candlers. But then I quickly realized that, I'm not sure if you can see very well, but just the dollar store flashlight works the best. So I didn't spend a lot of money on our candlers. I just use a basic flashlight. And that helps when students drop them or spill something on them. They're easy to replace. So that was a little lesson that we did with them that day. This one is one of our more popular ones. We do this also during a week-long event with our city schools over the summer. And this one's called Exploring the Egg Lesson. So you can use this lesson with 5th through 8th graders. It takes about 30 minutes to prepare it in total. And you can kind of change the time limit on how you want to deliver it. It can be done in 50 minutes. You can make it longer or shorter based on your needs. But it does focus mostly on the 6th grade standard. So if you want to look at it just for a standard-based perspective, then you might need to change it and focus it in a little bit more. But the basic premise of this lesson is that students learn to identify the parts of the egg. So I have a PowerPoint and we go through all the different parts of the egg so they can get a feel of what's going on. And I always ask them, can anybody name a part of the egg, more than one part? And you'd be surprised on how many times they sit there and stare at you like, I have no idea. And I'm like, well, what about the shell? And they're like, oh yeah, that's a part. So going through parts of the egg is really important. And then we talk about the quality of egg production and the different ways to examine eggs. And then we talk about the harmful bacteria that can be associated with eggs. So in this lesson, Again, we start off by talking about the parts of the egg, and then we actually give them an egg. So this egg is in two different forms. It is a whole egg for them to candle, and then it's a broken out egg. So since it's a broken out egg, that's why we go through the bacteria and germs that can be associated with it. So we don't want them touching the egg, throwing it at each other, anything like that, like kids like to do sometimes. But I do have to say, our kids are really respectful of the eggs and they have treated them really well. So when we do this lesson, you can give your kids, depending on if you want to expand or condense your lesson, one egg. I usually just get it from the grocery store. And if you can see in this egg, it has a line around it. I like to keep eggs for a really long time, so I store them in my refrigerator. So this line tells you where the air cell is. You can see how big it is. So I give them an air cell of a low quality egg that I've been aging out a long time. And then I also give them a fresher egg. So this way they can really see the difference in the air cell and the quality of the egg. And the teachers get really excited looking at this too, because we have a discussion about um, how it deteriorates over time and why this is bigger or smaller than the fresh egg. So we dive into that. And then we also have the broken out egg. So you can just leave the broken out egg for them to just look at, or you can do the same thing, have an older egg and a newer egg that's broken out. So that way they can really see the difference depending on how much time and how much detail you want to go into your lesson. What's really exciting about this one is we give them all the flashlights. They get to be egg investigators is what I call them. So they really enjoy looking to see if they can find the air cell and figuring out why one is bigger than the other. If you have time, I also include the egg floating experiment. So I have a giant bowl of water. So I give the students the opportunity to test their egg. So do they think their egg will float? Do they think their egg will sink? And we talk about why it floats versus sinks. And that's a really good lesson that the teachers have really enjoyed. That way they can talk about how that works. So the next lesson, this is one that our schools said, we have all these eggs, we don't know what to do with them. How can we use them and incorporate them into our lessons? So again, this is a 6th grade standard and an 8th grade standard, but I have done this lesson with students as young as 3rd grade. And basically what we're going to do with that is grade the egg. So we take the eggs that they get from their chicken coops, or you can buy eggs from the store. We kind of, and again, you can shrink or expand this depending on how much time you have, but we have this printed out exterior checklist. So we go through what an egg needs to go through to get to market. So basically how it comes from the farm all the way to your fork. So we talk about the cleanliness of the egg, the shape of it, the texture. That's really great if you have some eggs that might have more calcium deposits, especially if they're coming from your chicken coop at home. You might have more of those than what you see at the store. We talk about the ridges, the shell thickness. So once we kind of cover each of those categories, they give it a grade of A, double A, dirty, or loss. From there, we're like, okay, we have it's past the outside. Now we need it to pass the inside or interior grading candling. So we talk about the air cell, the whites, the yolk, and the blood or meat spot. So when it comes to the money up there on top, I found it easiest to explain to little kids that if it has the air cell that's the size of a dime, it's going to be a newer, fresher egg and get the score of double A. If it's the size of a nickel, then it would be an A. And if it's the size of a quarter, it's a B. So we go through each of those, and you can see on the right-hand side here, that's the interior checklist. So it's on the back of the exterior. They go through it, they give it a little check mark for our purposes, and then they give it a grade of double A, B, or loss. So once they've graded it, congratulations, now it's got to get to our table. So what are we going to do with our egg? And this has been one of the most fun things I've discovered, actually during COVID. We have our Bartow 4-H YouTube channel page, and we did a cooking series. So this egg chaffle was featured on it, so we incorporated it with this lesson. So if you're not familiar with what a chaffle is, it's basically taking one of these little mini waffle makers here and cooking with it. So instead of cooking a waffle, we're actually basically frying the egg. So what students do is we give them a recipe. It's just a cheesy egg chaffle. So it has one egg, crack that in a bowl. It's really exciting to see them crack eggs because a lot of the times you can tell they've never been allowed to cook or crack an egg before. So we walk through again how to safely and properly do that. They have their egg, they add cheese, they mix it all together. And really the only seasoning it has with it is garlic. And so you can imagine with kids, that's a little interesting on how they measure. But we do talk about measuring and how it's important. It only calls for a quarter teaspoon of garlic, so it's not very much. But a lot of the times, I give them the whole set of measuring spoons. So one kid accidentally put a whole tablespoon of garlic in his egg chaffle. So when he ate it, I don't think he was a fan and quickly realized that he put too much garlic in it. So once they have that all mixed together, the teachers and I, you can see this top left picture, pour the egg mixture into the waffle maker, close it up, and then after just a few minutes, it's very quick and easy, then they're able to enjoy their egg chaffle. So again, we talk about food safety with it, how to follow a recipe, because a lot of them don't. We actually have a couple different recipes with the egg chaffle. There's a pizza chaffle that I've tried with students as well. So it's basically the same base, but after it's cooked, they spread a little marinara pizza sauce on top, and then they take a little extra cheese and sprinkle on top. And then they have these little mini pepperonis that they just place on top. So it looks like a pizza. So when I looked over, after this one little boy was reading his recipe, he was mixing his pizza sauce into the egg mixture before it was cooked. So it turned a little red. I don't think it bothered his taste buds all that much. But really going through the recipe and making sure they know how to read and understand a recipe will help before you start cracking your eggs. And then we talk about the appliance safety. I do have a set of 4 waffle makers, so it can cook 4 at one time. So if you're going to do this on a larger scale, investing in one of those is a really great option. But we talk about how to handle it to make sure that we don't burn ourselves. And again, this one has always been very popular. In fact, in just a couple weeks, I'm going to do this lesson again with the chicken club at a different elementary school. Another one that our kids have really liked is our zoonotic diseases. So in Georgia, we have what's called Friends books, and these are curriculum for 4-Hers. So inside of it, it talks about different careers that you can have. It talks about bacteria versus viruses and how those can be transmission between people and animals. So this is a great opportunity to incorporate that problem-based learning because
Just a question. What does PBL stand for? PBL
problem-based
French. Oh, problem-based learning.
problem-based learning. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So all the teachers really want to present the students with a problem or situation and have them figure out how to fix it. So in this book, it talks about, I forget her name. Sarah has a little chick that she's raising at home. What are some situations or problems that might arise between Sarah and the chick? And I'm not doing a very good job explaining it, but basically it gives them a situation and they have to figure out what Sarah was doing wrong and how she can keep herself safe and how she can keep her animals safe. So we start off talking about this book as our beginning point. And then I always like to incorporate a hands-on learning part. So this is where our germ lesson kind of comes into play. So I have this lotion. It's called Glitter Bug Potion. So I have the students oh my goodness, I can't see it. I can send you the link to what it is, but it's a glitter bug lotion. So it's just a regular lotion type. So they rub it in their hands, it dissolves, you can't see it anymore. And then once you put the glow light on it, the black light, I have this big giant portable flashlight that shows all of the germs. So it makes them glow on their hands like this. And this part I kind of break out into different sections. So they have a couple people decide to wash their hands with water only, some that wash their hands with soap and water, and then some that just use hand sanitizer. And then we have some that do nothing at all. So then at that point, after they've washed their hands with just water, soap and water, or just hand sanitizer, we go through and look and see how well they did. So the spots on their hands that glow the most are the spots with the most germs. So then we talk about the proper way to wash your hands, why it's important. And if you would like, you can also do a variation of this and put lotion on a ball or your own hands and then shake their hand as they come through, and then it kind of rubs off on them. So that gives them an extra visual of how germs are spread contact to contact. So this one is always a really popular one, and we do this every year with all of our students. It's really great if you do it in December or when it starts getting colder and all those germs start appearing. So this was a really fun lesson that we did. This one, if you're familiar with poultry judging and you've ever done that before, is taken kind of a cue from poultry judging. And we talk about past production hens. So some of the hens that we get for poultry judging, we have our schools adopt them into the flock. So some of the time they want to know a little bit more about them. And so that's when we talk about pigment loss and egg production, the abdominal capacity and handling qualities of birds. I don't do this one very much with younger students because it's a lot for them and they lose interest a little bit, but this would be a great activity to do with older students like middle schoolers or high schoolers. This parts identification lesson I've done with 3rd through 5th grade, and this one has been really exciting. I had extra money in our budget, so I was able to purchase fake food products. So if you've ever gone to a store like Starbucks, you can see they have like the fake food in their display cases. I contacted a supply company and they were able to get me a bird. It was really great. So we can take this and use it to talk about the different parts and where those parts come from on the bird. But then we also have drumstick, chicken tenderloin. We have egg flats, chicken flat, the wing flat, the drumette, and then we have a thigh with back. We have chicken breasts, and we have a thigh without back. So I have all of these parts lined up, and we use the bigger bird to talk about all the different parts that they have. And then they have the smaller parts and have to figure out where they go if you're putting the whole bird back together. So this was a really great activity for them to have all the parts laid out. And then they had to guess which part they thought was what. So they had a little sheet. What do you think part number 1 is? I think it's a tenderloin. So that was a really interesting thing for them to do. They really liked seeing the whole bird. So if you have extra money to purchase those items, they really make an impact. I've also used these for the germ hand washing lesson, where I've taken the lotion, the germ lotion, and spread it all over the chicken. So that way, when you shine the light on it, you could see, and it would almost emulate the real chicken with the germs and everything that's on top of it. So I've done it that way as well. So some extra thoughts or ideas that you could incorporate when it comes to poultry science lesson in schools that I've done. Again, we had the chicken coops. They were getting all these eggs in. They didn't know how to wash their eggs properly. So I was able to do an egg washing lesson with them. And we talked about the temperature that's best to wash the eggs in to make sure that your eggs stay safe. We also have done a feather pattern lesson. This one was really challenging for the students. So I do recommend doing this with older students, but I was able to go on Amazon and they have all kinds of different feather patterns that you can look at to incorporate and use. So that was a really great learning opportunity for them to see the different patterns that birds have on them. We've also done a marketing lesson. So we talk about different egg companies where they've gone and looked at magazines, online ads, TV ads. We pulled up some of those egg ads from way back when in the day that they have on YouTube. Mercedes-Benz actually had a really fun commercial where they incorporated chickens with their cars. So it's really fun for them to see how they've incorporated birds and chickens and eggs into everyday life and to promote and sell their products. So that was one thing that we've done. One other lesson that's been really popular has been the egg drops, especially here in Georgia. I think almost every South Georgia county has come up with these egg drops. If you're not familiar with an egg drop, it's basically you're given your egg and then you're given a set list of supplies. So that supply could be what looks like a parachute. You get a Ziploc bag, tape, uh, the I call them tongue depressors, by popsicle sticks of various sizes, straws. And what you have to do is to create a safe landing zone for your egg. So after they think that their egg is secured and it won't break when they drop it, students actually go outside and test it. So they drop their egg and see which egg survives. So that one has been really fun. I think they call it an egg drop challenge here in Georgia. Some other lessons. So sometimes if they don't want to have just a specialty lesson like we've mentioned previously, they'll have ongoing projects if they have the chicken coops at the schools. So one of them that they've used is the temperature of the coop. They monitor, I guess, for like 3 or 4 months, almost a whole semester worth of temperatures in the coop and how it affects the birds. They've also looked at the season and impact of laying their eggs. And one lesson that we did, which was really quick with our chicken club, was a fight versus flight animal. So we talked about the differences between those and what they thought a bird would be. That can get a little suspect with some parts of the county, but we do talk about flight versus fight animals. We also talked about dirt baths. So that was really neat for the students to kind of see that you could make a dirt bath and how it's helpful for birds to have those and why it's important for birds to have dirt baths. But there are some problems and challenges that come with maintaining and the lessons that go along with this. So one of our schools had their students measure egg production each day. So starting at the beginning of the year in August, they had students go and visit the coop every single day. And they were looking for how many eggs they collected. In total, they had about 10 birds at their school. And then they noticed on September 19th, they just stopped laying eggs. So they were really concerned about maybe that there was a predator problem that they had going on there. Why did they stop laying eggs? So it's important if you do have, I guess, chicken coops at the schools to encourage them maybe to get a ring camera, a trail cam or something so they can see and monitor those birds to see if there's any problems going on with it. But to also keep in mind that molting might be a problem because a lot of the schools don't realize that that might happen. And that would affect their collection and their project that they're working on. So our schools are looking for what's called STEM certification. So not having that data from October, November, and December was really impacting their progress towards their STEM goals. So encouraging them to keep in mind that if something goes wrong or something happens, what plan B are you going to have for your science standard that you're trying to hit? If they're just starting out, having a coop design challenge would be really fun. I know that one of our first grader classrooms, they were developing shelters for animals. So you could talk about what specific poultry might need to be safe, to be happy, content, and all of those great things. And what designs do the students come up with? At one of our elementary schools, the students actually designed it, and then they had the high schoolers build it. So there was a lot of great ideas that came with it. In fact, it looked very similar to this picture, but we talked about how they could have made it better. So when they had their chicken wire, it kind of overhangs. So when you open the door, you get poked and prodded. So talking to teachers about how you're going to keep the chicken safe and the kids safe. So when we had this school, they had after school really close to the birds, and the principal really wanted the birds to be up front with the children, which is great. But in after school, I think it stressed the birds out a little bit. So making sure that when they're looking at designing and building, how can you incorporate those animals, but keep them and the students safe as well? And then utilizing and incorporating gardens is a great way. A lot of our schools actually have school gardens too. So we talk about how they can use something like this design. I found this off Pinterest. I thought it was so smart and a great way to incorporate different things that you could use for your chicken's dirt bath, in addition to growing them so students can learn more about different plants. And here, this in particular talks about different plants that are great to plant near and around chickens: mint, sage, thyme, lavender, and rosemary were all great things that they suggested incorporating for chickens and around them. I've even seen, if you're a fan of Chip and Joanna Gaines, they made chicken runs around their garden, which is a really great idea. So the chickens had a small enclosure around the perimeter of the garden, and that helped with pest control. And gave the chickens a little extra running space as well. So if you have lots of unlimited budget, maybe incorporating something like that would be really fun for the kids to see. So, if you would like me to send you any of these resources or lessons, I do have all of them available, and I would love to help you incorporate some of these, start setting them up with schools or local communities, and whatever it may be or however it might look best for your students. So if you would take a minute to scan the QR code, it just asks for your name and contact information, and then I would be happy to send you all of the resources that we covered today. And if you'd like to take down my contact information, it's just right there at the bottom of the screen. So I can help you with any incorporating chickens and poultry into your local areas. While you're scanning the QR code, if you have any questions, I would be happy to take those or answer those. Or if I went through something really fast, I'd be happy to go back to it.
The main question we've had so far is, how do I get these teaching tools? And you just answered that with your last slide, which we'll leave up for a little while for those that are in there. Do you do all the lessons for all the different counties, or do you teach the teachers to do it, or how does that work?
I go in and teach all of them. So how I'm set up, I'm just in our Bartow County. We have 15 elementary schools. So I have done these lessons with just over half of our elementary school students. So it kind of varies. For the middle schools, once a month I'll go in and pick a chicken lesson each month to go through. So one month it might be feathers, another the choffle. So I make it sort of a series. And then over the summer, it's mostly just the egg specific one. So they have a farm to fork week. So they picked a different product each week. One day it was dairy, one day it was a pizza garden, one day it was bees, and then my day was the egg day. So we did exploring the egg. So they got the chance to get the egg handler out and look at the differences of the eggs. So just
that leads to my next question. What happens to the flocks where schools have, I assume egg production flocks during the summer?
So that's it depends. Each school's a little different. Some teachers rotate through and go check on them. Some of them have what's called chicken ambassadors. So they'll have family members that they trust to go out there to take care of the chickens each day. So each school is a little different on how they operate, but mostly you have to have the teachers that are willing to go out there and make sure that they're taken care of, which is in most of the cases, that's what happens. Or they'll take the birds home.
So how large of a flock is typical for a school?
For ours, most of them have between 5 to 10, no more
So
than
they're pretty
that.
small flocks, yeah.
Very small. Our nutrition coordinator for the county had these grand ideas of having enough chickens at each school to supply the eggs for the cafeteria. I think that's a very lofty goal, very ambitious. I'm not sure the teachers were on board with that. So that's still in the process.
A lot of work. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
Especially that's a lot of eggs in the summer to deal with when the school's closed.
They do have, some I guess the biggest concern that they have is trying to support the flocks that they do have. So they're trying to figure out what they can do with the egg production and different ways to raise money to help support the feed costs and that kind of thing. So that's been one of the biggest challenges that the schools have had so far.
Do most of them use leghorns for the poultry judging section? They don't
Yes.
use like different colored eggs or anything like that.
I've not seen the ones that have different colored eggs. Some of them have different breeds. And if you hadn't asked me, I would be able to tell you what one of our schools just got. Was there a princess breed?
I never heard of a princess
She
breed.
just told me what they were, but they do have some that are not leghorns. But for the most part, that's what they
Yeah,
are.
because you get some that, lay brown eggs, and then you get the Americanas that lay, the green or blue eggs, or the olive eggers, or, there's all sorts of different ones. Somebody wants to know if you teach chicken genetics.
I've not gone that far with chicken genetics, mostly because the students that I see third through fifth, it's a little over their head for that. So I try not to. But if I was, working with high schoolers, that might be something that I would definitely look into. But I'm afraid with little ones to go that far.
Yeah. Um, any other questions, guys? I can keep thinking of questions. These are fantastic tools. Of course, being an extension person myself, trying to think of the logistics of trying to have a flock in the school, you have to have a person at the school that's into it to maintain the flock. You have to have the resources to watch out for salmonella transmission to the kids. So it's sort of which came first, the hen or the egg, in terms of trying to teach the proper skills to take care of the birds,
Yeah,
but having the birds at the same time.
yeah. I think it's been really great, the ones that have the coops at the schools, they've been able to incorporate it. But for those that don't have the chicken coops, doing the egg science lessons has been a really great introduction and a great kind of segue into that.
Do you have any suggestions for modifying this program for a 4-H livestock competition like a state fair?
Um, yeah, so not knowing the fair, and each fair is a little different, each state's a little different on how they work. I think I've heard a lot of people have stations like exhibition areas, and I think that having the egg candling part would be really great to take the exploring the egg and having different eggs set up so they can actually candle the egg and see the differences. That's been really something that the students have really enjoyed. I think with one of the middle schools, I accidentally aged it out too long on my bookshelf in the sun. And of course, the big green cloud appeared on the inside. So if you're aging your eggs out, I found that aging them in the refrigerator is easier. But having something like that at the fair and having a backup in case one breaks would be a great kind of exhibition to get people involved and bring them around so they could kind of see what goes on with eggs and why they're important. That would be the easiest one I can think of.
Most states, well, not most, because some don't, but I know Georgia does. They have poultry judging competitions for 4-H. I don't know when you hold yours. Yours is probably separate from the state fair. Ours is held here in Kentucky at the state fair. So having these kids learn about poultry judging with the candling and the parts and the grading, you can add in grading of a carcass as well.
I
Would be a way of having it as a livestock competition at the
Yeah, if you bought the fake plastic pieces of meat, like that would be another thing. I've tried to figure out ways that I could manipulate these to give them a grade. So like if it was missing a piece or broken, but I haven't figured out how to do that. But just the parts ID might be something that's fun and easy. I think for the total of all of these pieces, it was about $200. And I've gotten a lot of great use out of them. So that might be something. Our poultry judging contest, we usually start our practices beginning in February for our contest in April. So we have weekly practices and I cover a lot of the components that we discussed here. But each time I have a mock contest with them. So if we start with just exterior egg grading, they have that the first week. Then the next week they have interior grading and exterior. So it just builds on itself, and that includes the parts identification, chicken nugget grading, I think has been included. I always tell the kids like that. They always think it's funny that you're judging chicken nuggets. And then carcass grading. So that's a great resource to have to kind of incorporate for that as well.
Where do you buy the fake parts?
I think I Googled it. Let me see if the company's name is right here. The Premier Visual Food Effects and Merchandising Company. So,
Premier Visual
Food Effects and Merchandising Company. And I can definitely share that information as well. So when you're filling out that QR code, I can send that to you as well if you're interested.
Yeah. Did you have to provide them with the chicken parts for them to copy, or
No,
they just
yeah,
figured it out?
I just told them what I was looking for, and that they were to just be like raw pieces of meat, you know, because they want some pieces to be cooked or because it's going in the store window. So they've not really ever had a request like this before. So when I told them what I was doing, that this was supposed to be a raw piece of chicken, they were a little confused at first. But yeah, they made everything for me. They couldn't do all of the parts. So if you're familiar with the poultry judging manual, there's a lot of different pieces. I didn't get all of the pieces. I just got some that I thought would be the best, the easiest for them to do, and ones that they could do based on the budget that I had. So again, I got the drumette, the drum, breast, the flat, the thigh without back, and the whole bird. The whole carcass was the piece that cost the most money. I think just that piece was the biggest chunk of my budget.
Yeah, nowadays they can print it.
Oh yeah, if you have a 3D printer.
3D printer.
Yes, that's a good idea. If you have access to one of those. I didn't think about that, but that would be great if you had that.
How and to whom do you showcase your results from these classes?
From these lessons, so each lesson that I have shown has a evaluation at the end of it. So for these in particular, a lot of them were used as my impact statement. I've also taken them, especially the ones with Chicken Club. So if I did all of these in a whole series throughout the year, at the end of it, I compiled it and then gave it back to the principals and the administrators and said, look at all the great things that your students learned and can do now with it.
Yeah, that's great. Getting the administrators online is always a pain in the butt. Kate Moot says, thanks. Things are very different in Guam, and I'm looking for ways to start state fair-like competitions. Poultry judging would be great. Perhaps we can chat offline. There is a poultry judging manual. There's a National 4-H Poultry and Egg Conference in November of every year where the national poultry judging competition is held. Most, start qualifying it at the state level to come. It's for seniors only. It has a judging manual there that can help. But do you have any suggestions other than just working with the kids?
Yeah, so one of the things that we have at our state horse show at the fair is public speaking. So you could have a poultry speaking competition or egg science, or you could incorporate both of them. And so you could have that as part of like a separate contest where a student would come up and give a formal presentation about a topic of interest that relates to poultry or egg science. So that might be something great to incorporate in that way also. I do have one of our dads that works for Tip Top Poultry. His kids did 4-H poultry judging. So he was able to get carcasses donated to us. So that was really great for them to see an actual carcass that would come from Tip Top Poultry, because he would bring me carcasses that were already missing limbs or missing parts or things like that. So it really helped give that visual, so I didn't have to spend all my time fabricating carcasses. He was able to have those donated. So if you do have a poultry judging team, if you have a parent or a local plant, reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to donate some product for you. And usually they do.
Yeah, I've done a lot of fabrication of of carcasses from purchased chicken. And with the prices these days, it can be extremely expensive.
He brought so many. He's like, how many do you want? And I think he brought me 10 one year. So I'm able to just reuse them over and over. I will say the ones that you purchase at the store do have, the liver, the heart, the lungs, and he hasn't been able to get me those. So keep that in mind if you want those pieces too.
Yeah. And if they want to talk to you, your contact information is there.
Yeah, you
Try
can
to
just fill
get your
that
tip
out
on.
and yeah, send me your email, your name, your contact information. I'd be happy to talk you through setting up anything and helping that get going. I've been in Extension 19 years, and I just started really working with poultry and egg science, I would say in 2021. And I can't believe how popular and how fast it's grown. Our poultry judging teams are filled to capacity. The students love it. The teachers love it. It's so fun and relatable. I'd be more than happy to help anybody set up and walk you through it.
Georgia does really good at nationals.
Well, I'm hoping I'll get there soon.
Yeah. Texas tends to take over these days, but they have a really good person there, so tends to the instructor tends to take things. Any other questions from anybody? Who put the whole lessons together? Was that you?
I did. The farm to fork one I made up, and I used parts of the poultry judging manual to kind of help facilitate that. But if you're looking for extra resources, National 4-H Council has some poultry lessons. And that was some of my inspiration for a few of the lessons. And those are definitely credited in my lesson plans. But if you're looking for lots of extra ideas, National 4-H Council has some books that you can purchase with mini lessons and things in there.
Just as a heads up, the National 4-H Poultry Judging Manual has been changed, and we don't do handling qualities anymore.
Good to know.
We could never get kids to understand handling qualities. It's a strange term, and they just think it's how well the chicken gets handled.
Well, that is valid, I guess. That's logical thinking.
Yeah, so they don't use that anymore. They use abdominal fat pad condition or something like that. So, any other questions? It's one of the more interesting ones we've had, especially for teachers. You must have put a lot of work and effort into creating the materials. Have the other counties taken it up?
Yeah, I've shared these at the Southern Region Volunteer Conference and at our curricula day. So there's a lot of schools and people that are looking to incorporate this. A lot of them have mentioned, especially the exploring the egg one, that they would use it as kind of a hook for poultry judging to kind of encapsulate and encourage kids to join poultry judging. So they use it as like their little intro thing. I know that this might be something that would make a great field day. We have lots of opportunities to have field days with students. So maybe turning this into like a field day with different stations at schools might be something if you didn't want to dive right into the fair. I don't have much to do with our fair and coordinating it, but I've heard that it has its challenges and it's overwhelming. So maybe having like a chicken day or chicken event with schools might be helpful, or just having one maybe at the local extension office that you can partner with and invite surrounding counties to go to might be a good kind of jumping off point if the fair was too much.
Yeah, perfect. Anybody else with questions? Okay, we're coming up on our time anyway. This should be processed and put up on our Facebook page, as well as the YouTube channel as soon as the system gets it through. I think the videos are done automatically, so it doesn't matter that the university's closed. So I should get them later today and be able to put them up. So thank you for coming. Let me just check what is next month. Next month, February 4th at 3 o'clock, we are talking about rat snakes and poultry flocks. That comes from, I watched, we have a forestry monthly thing here that they talk about, and how rat snakes are good for controlling a lot of pests. And so while we think of rat snakes as a predator because they're attracted to the eggs and people want to get rid of them, they actually do have some benefits to having rat snakes around. So it's going to be on rat snakes and poultry and friend or foe. So hopefully you can join us next month. Thank you, Allison. It was nice meeting you, and a very good presentation. And I'll be contacting you to get some of the copies as well to use there. They are great. I think that a lot of the teachers around the country would be interested in seeing that. So thank you guys for coming, and I hope to see you all next month. So
Thank
bye,
you.
everybody.